And we're live, everybody. Welcome to episode 13 of the Off the Wall Hockey Show, part of the Steel Flyers All Sports Network here. We want to welcome you all to the show. Steel back again, obviously, as my co-host. Steel, how are you doing? You ready for a big night of hockey talk?
Oh, man. Not only is it a big night of hockey talk, but there's a big night of hockey, period. There's games going on right now. Oh, my gosh. How you doing, John? How you doing, man?
I'm doing really well. How are you? I'm excited for the show.
Oh, man. Me too.
Awesome. So obviously we have a lot to talk about here tonight. There's been a lot going on around the league. We are headed toward trade deadline time. We actually have a trade that happened today to talk about.
Yep.
We've got races going on all over every division. Teams trying to fight into the playoffs. Teams trying to fight for first place. Just great battles all over the league right now.
Just fighting.
Yeah,
teams just fighting.
Teams fighting. There were 6 fights in 11 games last night, so we literally have teams fighting, and it's been
the pun was intended.
Yeah, it's been a great week of hockey, and we have a lot to talk about here. But before we get into it all, I do want to mention our sponsor, Canine Country Club Resorts, and give a huge thank you to them for all of their support here at Steel Flyers, not only of this show, but of everyone at Steel Flyers, and everything that they do to support us, and we certainly hope to support them as much as we can. We'll be showing their commercial multiple times during the show tonight, but with that said, I think we're ready to get into it, Steel, and that means it's time for top stories. And this is always fun to look at, the biggest things going around the league right now. And if you want to get right into your first one, we can get into it here.
Okay, we can, but we might want to do this. Breaking news. Breaking news. A trade has happened. Eric Staal has been traded from the Buffalo Sabres to
the
Montreal Canadiens.
Yes.
Ooh, there you go. The first domino has fallen, and it is a American team to a Canadian team.
Yes, and in other news, the Canadian teams, now the quarantine period has been reduced by Canada from 14 days down to 7 days. So that as soon as that happened, we've seen a move be made now.
Okay.
And I think they were kind of waiting for that to happen.
See, and that's exactly because everything that I had read said that they were still negotiating with the NHL and Canada and and the governments, and they're trying to get to see how they could maybe reduce the quarantine time because it was 14 days. If you went from the United States to Canada, it was 14 days.
Yep.
Okay. And so we saw that. We saw a trade happen between Winnipeg and Columbus, and the player that went to Canada had to wait the 14 days.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, this is big news, I think, and I think it's gonna even my number one was or no, I'm sorry. Do we start with number 3 first, or go with number 1 first? I'm sorry.
One first.
Number 1. My number 1 story was games in the North have been postponed due to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of ironic that there have been some games now that have finally been affected in the North by COVID, where games have been postponed. Two or three games have been postponed so far.
Mm-hmm.
And now they've just lifted the restrictions on the coming in from United States for trades. So that's okay. I guess that would coincide. What do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how that worked out, but this was coming. The NHL, obviously the Canadian teams wanted that quarantine period to be lessened, because 14 days in a 56 game year, that's a huge chunk of the season. I mean, if you miss 8 games in 2 weeks, I mean, that's a big chunk of the season right there. So especially with these deadline deals, the Canadian teams definitely wanted them to be to that period to be lessened, and now it has been down to 7 days. And now the first day we see a trade between the Sabres and the Canadians. And from a hockey standpoint, I do like the trade. I think it kind of helps both teams in what they were looking for. I mean, if you're the Buffalo Sabres, Eric Staal is not doing there's no reason for Eric Staal to be on the Buffalo Sabres. You're not going anywhere near the playoffs. You can't even win a game right now. Eric Stahl's 36 years old. He's certainly not the player that he was, 10 years ago, but he's still a very serviceable middle six center who on a good team would be able to probably put up, 30, 40 points in a year. So, I think
I would take that
for Buffalo. I mean, you're getting rid of a guy who's really not doing much for you and doesn't need to be there, and you're getting a couple of draft picks back in return, which is about all that you were going to get for him. And if you're the Sabres, assets are what you need right now. And if you're the Montreal Canadiens, I mean, talk about a boost to your center depth down the middle. I mean, this is a team that struggled with their centers this season. I mean, Nick Suzuki's still very, very young. Kotkaniemi has not had a great year. He's looking more and more like a bottom six guy.
Well, he also was out with COVID too.
Yes, he's out with COVID actually right now. That's why the Canadiens' last few games have been postponed. And Philip Deneau has not had a good season either. So Montreal's struggled down the middle. Getting that boost of a guy like Eric Staal coming into that lineup is going to be big for them. They didn't give up a lot to get him. And if you're Buffalo, you get a couple of draft picks. So I feel like from a hockey standpoint, this is one of those trades where kind of everybody just gets a little bit of what they need. And there's no true like winner or loser. It's one of those smaller
it's kind
deals.
Of an everybody wins.
That everybody gets something that they need out of. Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Everybody wins.
Yeah.
Because Buffalo gets picks because they're going to need them.
Yep.
And Montreal gets some depth, gets some leadership, gets some experience down the middle because now they have new coach, new message, you know what I mean?
Yep.
There might be a tie between the coach that's there now and Stahl. That might be another thing too. You know what I'm saying? We don't know. I don't know. I'm not privy to that. It's a possibility, I'm sure. We could probably gather that if we had, hey, where's the research guy?
Yeah.
we need a research intern so we can have that stuff fed in, so that's why anyway. But yeah, that's going to be that's a good way to put it, where everybody wins, everybody gets a little something of what they need, and moving forward, you know what I mean? Buffalo can use the draft picks and Montreal can use the experience and the depth. So there you go. That's good all the way around.
Yeah.
So your number one top story.
Yeah.
The reason why I want to do this is because I think this is going to garner a little bit more conversation.
Yeah.
So give me your number one.
Yeah,
man.
So I think everyone around the hockey world, this story blew up over the past few days. Tim Peel, the referee that got caught on the hot mic, basically saying that he wanted to call a penalty on the Nashville Predators. He openly said, I was looking to call a penalty against Nashville, and he got caught on the microphone saying it, said it live on TV so everyone could hear him, and he now... So I guess he hasn't officially been fired because that would be a whole legal thing behind actually firing him, but he's not going to work games anymore. So essentially he's fired, but without them actually firing him and having to go through the legal side of that.
Okay.
So
here's what
Tim Peel. Okay. Yep.
So here's what I know, or read, or seen, or whatever. He was slated to retire.
Yes, he was going to retire in a month.
At the end of the year or whatever.
April 24th was going to be his last game. He wasn't even doing the playoffs this year.
Okay. Well, so there you have it.
Yeah.
And so what happened is that the league came out and fired him, and then it seems like they did a little bit of a walk back.
Yeah.
And said that he's not technically quote unquote fired. He's been relieved of duties.
Yes. So that's what's happened here.
What?
He got a month early retirement, basically. He's still going to get his retirement package and his pension and all of that. He's not going to do any more games, and this is kind of ridiculous from the league. Just trying to somehow save face, I guess, although everybody who watches hockey knows that what Tim Peel did, every single other referee that referees in the NHL has done the exact same thing and actually does it on a pretty regular basis. I remember I was doing Wednesday night, the game between the Sabres and the Penguins, and we were picking out makeup calls in that game. Like after Buffalo got a couple of power plays in a row, they called a very weak hooking call for the next penalty against the Sabres so that Pittsburgh could get a power play. And it was like, that's exactly what you just fired this guy for, but every single referee does it, and it actually happens on a regular basis in hockey. And the whole thing just seems kind of ridiculous to me. The league, I think everybody kind of looks dumb. Like, Tim Peel looks dumb because he openly said it into a microphone. The league looks dumb because they completely overreacted to it. Fans
and then walked it back.
Then walked back on it. Some fans seem to be completely oblivious to what a makeup call even is. Other fans just don't care about this at all. And like, I feel like everybody just looks dumb in this whole situation. It's like, this happens all the time. It is what it is. If you don't like makeup calls, that to me is a whole other discussion. Like, that is a whole other thing to talk about, whether or not makeup calls should be a thing in the NHL. But whether you like it or not, they happen in hockey all the time. You don't see teams getting 4 or 5 power plays in a row. Once a team gets 2 or 3, they start looking to call one on the other team and start to even that out. And it's been a thing forever in hockey.
I agree with you 100%. I've been watching hockey now for over 25 years, and I can honestly tell you that I know what a makeup call looks like.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. However, I'm going to pull out a little soapbox here and jump on it real quick. So excuse me for a sec. Let me say this about referees in the NHL. They are the best in the world. The Olympics call on these guys to call games because these guys do an incredible job with an incredible amount of pressure, incredible speed, and they do a pretty good job.
Yes.
Overall.
Yeah.
Okay. So the job that these guys have, and they've added more referees now to the ice surface now. So now there's an extra linesman that's out there now, and there's a goalie judge now, and there's a guy sitting, on the sides. That's the side judge now that sits in the box, and Toronto is looking overhead now at everything now and watching every play and blottity, whatever you want to call it. Okay? So Here's how I look at it. Please do not have the black and whites decide games.
Mm-hmm.
Too much of that has been going on. Look, I understand makeup calls and all that, and I get it. All right? I'm not discounting it. I'm not condoning it. It happens. It is what it is. It's part of hockey. It's been part of hockey ever since I've started watching hockey. I don't expect it to change anytime soon. Number 2, cut out this ticky-tacky stuff.
Yeah.
If you're gonna, and then that rolls right into number 3. If you're going to call it for one side, call it for the other.
Yeah.
Now, look, I'm not going to be a homer here, and this is the first year where I've really had an opportunity to watch games other than my home team.
Mm-hmm.
And I've watched a lot of bloody hockey in the last couple of months here.
Yep.
Let me tell you. And with games every night, with multiple games every night, it's like you get to pick a game, pick a night,
mm-hmm.
pick an hour, and click, there's some hockey. Watch it for a length of time and pick things out, which is what I do. That's kind of what I do.
Yeah.
And I look at games, and you see sets of referees will call trippings and hookings and that kind of stuff, but they won't call high sticking and they won't call interference.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see groups of referees that'll call interference calls and high sticking calls, but they won't call the slew foot. They won't call, anything else or whatever. Then you have a set of refs that will allow fighting, or you see a set of refs that don't. They constantly will skate right in and be right there on top of everybody, so there is no fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So I've seen that not just with throughout multiple games throughout the year with multiple teams, multiple games, it doesn't matter. You start picking out on these kinds of trends. It just seems like the refs have been on a coffee break this year,
Yeah.
all the way across the board. It just seems like they're phoning it in some nights. Okay, it really does. You see phantom calls, and you see calls that are obvious calls that should be made,
That aren't.
and every single ref is looking the other way.
Yep.
Wait a minute, how is that? Wait, hold on. And then you see these calls where every ref is looking at this guy, but this guy over here is called for a high sticking, and he doesn't even have a stick.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm not the only one that sees this. So, like I said, don't let the black and whites decide the games. Cut out this ticky-tacky stuff and call it from one side to the other and be consistent. If you do that, I guarantee you'll be heads and tails above everything in the whole freaking bloody world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, off soapbox now.
My biggest issue with the officiating is the consistency, because there is none.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Every ref calls the game differently. Like every single, I mean, you got 2 refs and 2 linesmen there, every game. Now the linesmen, their rules are very black and white for the most part, with the exception of face-offs. They're tossing. Some guys toss everybody out of the face-off for every little thing, and then other linesmen, you could literally be turned completely sideways and he still won't throw you out.
Still won't. Yeah.
And so like that's the only thing. Offsides, icing, those are very black and white rules.
But some of those are getting pretty subjectionable now, or objectionable.
Well, there's very close ones, but the rule itself is very black and white.
Yeah, but why are they letting one go where it's clearly should have been called icing, and then they don't let one go where it clearly is not icing?
Yeah, they're not great either, but I think the referees are worse with it than the linesmen. The referees, you have 2 refs calling every single game now, and every single one of them calls the game differently. What's interference on one night and what's perfectly fine the next night literally changes game to game. What warrants a hooking call and what doesn't literally changes game to game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my biggest issue watching the NHL as much as I do over the past, not just this year, but over the past number of years, is that the consistency is getting worse because there is absolutely none. And I don't think the players know what a penalty is and what isn't. I don't think the coaches know what is and isn't.
Perfect point.
And it changes every single night. And they're like, well, what do we do? Because last night I made this same play and the ref came over and was like, great defensive play, man. That was awesome. And now you're calling me for hooking for doing the exact same thing tonight. It's like, what's a penalty and what isn't? And you cannot play the game. Like, as a player, you can't play the game not knowing what the rules are and what they aren't. And it's really frustrating as a player when you have that inconsistency in the officiating.
You know what? I think we pretty much nailed that one, man.
Yeah.
Because, we have a lot of respect for the referees because
it's
a lot of
very difficult job. I would not want to be a hockey ref. I wouldn't want to ref little kid hockey, never mind the NHL.
Are you kidding, man? Your parents would be, death threats. I've seen stories, parents' death threats. Yeah,
I don't want to be a hockey ref. It's a very difficult job, and I don't just want to drag them through the mud. But the consistency has not been at the professional level when the players are playing at an all-time high level.
Can't disagree with you at all on that one, my man, because and that's why I was trying to give them as much credit as I possibly can, because guys are, skating past them now at 15 miles an hour.
25 if you're Connor McDavid.
Well, okay, but not everybody's Connor McDavid,
yeah,
so
well,
a
lot of them can
average.
Yeah.
All right. Well, still,
they're flying out there.
That's what I mean. 15 miles an hour. Can you judge about what happens? Something that's going 15 miles an hour that suddenly is not, and then like I said, it's a tough job. I would not want to do it, and I give them all the credit in the world. However, if you're going to be in that job and you're going to do that position, then I suggest that you do it right with your eyes open.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all. I'm just asking it to be consistent and fair.
Yep.
I'm tired of seeing games where players are, or because of certain players on certain teams, more power plays tend to happen at key moments
Mm-hmm.
during the game where there's like 2 minutes left in the second period, and magically this team gets a power play,
Mm-hmm.
and they just happen to be down by one.
Yep.
I, that's too much of a coinky dink, if you ask me.
No, and it's always gone on in hockey. It's always been there, and it's always the way that it's worked. And I think fans get really frustrated with that, especially when their teams are on the short end of it. And I think players get frustrated with it, but like I don't think I don't know if it's ever going to change, because it literally, as long as I've been watching hockey, it's been the same kind. Like, that stuff's always gone on. And I think if you went back and talked to players in the 80s, in the 70s, in the 50s, they would say the same thing. That kind of stuff was always going on, where certain players get calls that other players don't. Certain teams may be a little bit favored, particularly when they're the home team, Montreal. Like, it's
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's like it's always been a part of hockey, and I feel like whether it should be a part of hockey or not is a totally different discussion compared to how we react to the fact that it is.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
And circling back to this whole Tim Peel incident, the fact of the matter is that whether it's right or wrong, what he did happens all the time. The only difference is he got caught on a microphone saying it.
Yep.
And that is why he is no longer working NHL games, and the NHL didn't have to fire their entire officiating squadron of refs, because if they actually cared about him, calling a penalty or looking for a penalty against Nashville, they'd have to fire every single ref that works for them.
See, that's why they had to walk that back, because, whoops. And the NHL, we didn't see anything. No, we didn't see anything. Really, we didn't see anything.
When I'm on stream doing games now, I'm going to start picking out makeup calls, and I'm going to start saying that's a makeup call, or the fact that they didn't call that was a makeup because they just gave that other team 2 power plays. They're not going to give them a third.
Oh, no, don't do that, man. That takes that. No, man. Be the goat self that you are. Call the games like you do, man. Yeah, we already know what happens, and we get it. Okay,
it's funny. I bet you go and look at game logs and see how many times a team gets more than 2 or 3 power plays in a row. It never happens.
Or you see certain teams get 5 power plays during the game, and the other team gets 0. You mean to tell me that the other team committed not as nary a penalty?
Yeah. No, I think it's very pick and choose as to what gets called, and that's
what I mean.
The frustrating thing.
No, I'm sorry. There is no team out there that can play the perfect game and not get called for a penalty. Well, hey, okay. I'm done. I won't say anymore.
on to the next one.
Yes, please. Can we go into the next one? So, since we both kind of did our number one, so how about, do you want to go with your number 2?
Yeah, I just quickly wanted to talk about the draft lottery changes a little bit. I had a lot of people asking me about that. So if you didn't know, the NHL did approve some somewhat minor changes to the draft lottery process this past week, because it wasn't solely because of the Rangers getting the first pick last year, but it had a lot to do with the Rangers getting the first pick last year.
That's a good way to put that.
Also, I think people, if you go back to the Oilers getting 3 in a row, 2010, 11, and 12, people were upset about them getting 3 number 1s in a row back then. That didn't really prompt any changes, but people were upset. People have complained about the draft lottery for a long time. They're trying to make it so that the worst teams have a better shot now of getting the best picks, which is how it's supposed to work.
Gosh, go figure.
So just to go through they made a few changes.
Break it down for us, my man.
2 spots are up for drawing with the ping pong balls rather than 3. So it used to be the top 3 picks were picked with the lottery. Now it's only 2. So that means that the team that finishes dead last can pick no worse than 3rd overall. Last year, Detroit got pushed all the way to 4th because they didn't win any of those lottery picks in the top 3. So,
yeah, that's right.
So they cut that down to 2 now, so that the team that finishes dead last can pick no worse than 3rd. And now there's only 2 spots that are up for grabs with the ping pong balls. Teams cannot move up more than 10 spots. So if you are, so again, every team that doesn't make the playoffs is a lottery pick. Technically, they have ping pong balls in the win thing that could be picked. So that means 16 teams make the playoffs in a normal year. Obviously, last year was different, but 16 teams make the playoffs. That means the 15 teams now, because there's 31. That means the top 15 teams all would have had a lottery pick. So that means you could be 15th. You could have just missed the playoffs by a point, and technically you could have won the number 1 overall pick. Now you cannot move up more than 10 spots. So nobody from beyond 10 is going to get that number 1 overall pick, which again gives a better chance for the really bad teams to get that number 1 pick, which is the way that it should be. And the third thing is that no franchise can win the number 1 overall pick more than twice in a 5-year period. So the days of the Oilers winning 3 in a row are over.
How many did the Penguins get in a row to get Crosby and Fleury and Malkin and?
I don't, because I think Malkin was he was 2nd overall, I think. So they got Fleury 1st overall in 2003. They got Malkin 2nd overall in 2004, and they got Crosby 1st overall in 2005.
Okay.
And then in 2006, didn't they get wasn't Jordan Staal like
or
3rd
like
overall
that,
or something like that? Like that actually wouldn't affect them because they only got 2 number 1s in that. They also had top 3 picks with the other.
Oh, sorry. Only 2 number 1s. Oh, so sorry.
So that could actually still happen. But you cannot win it more than twice. That would be the maximum. 2 number 1 overall picks in a 5-year span. So the Edmonton Oilers winning it in 10, 11, and 12, that cannot happen anymore. And I agree with that too, because if you can't make a good team out of having 2 number 1 picks, then you don't deserve another number. You don't deserve another number 1 pick. I mean, your franchise is in trouble, and actually, the Oilers were in trouble for a long time because even with Hall, Nugent Hopkins, and Yakupov was a complete bust. They still weren't good until McDavid came around. So,
which was at the end.
I'll say I'm in favor of all of these changes. I like all of them. They help out the bad teams more. They stop, a team that barely missed the playoffs from jumping up all the way into a top 3 spot and stealing that from a team like Buffalo or Detroit who desperately needs those top 3 picks. And it limits the number of times that you can win that number 1 pick so that you don't have teams there getting that 1st overall over and over and over again and not doing anything with it like the Edmonton Oilers did when they had it 3 years in a row. So I like all of these changes, but I think they help the bottom teams who desperately need the help.
This is one area where I really am scratching my head on this whole draft lottery thing and how this whole thing works. Because look, I'm old school and I come from football, where you look at the draft and if you're the worst team, you get the number 1 draft pick. There's no picking, there's no deciding, the only difference is that if there's 2 teams that have the same worst record, then they have to do some tiebreakers.
Yeah.
Other than that, if you have the worst record, you get the number 1 pick. That's just the way it is. And then it's progressive to whomever has the worst record gets number 2, number 3, 4, 5, 6, until you get to the set of teams that make the playoffs.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's all based off of what your rank was at the end of the year, depending on what your record was and how you finished.
Yeah. So
if you finished 0-16 or 17,
yep,
that's number 1 draft pick. Okay. If you finish 2-9 15 or whatever, that's pretty much still going to be a number one draft pick unless somebody loses more than you. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So that's kind of, this is where I agree with you 100%. And I'm glad that they did make this change because that was really ridiculous. The fact that New York was able to get that number one draft
Mm-hmm.
pick when clearly they were not the worst team to be, you know,
Yeah, that
uh,
should have gone to a Detroit or a Buffalo. I mean, last year Ottawa was down there,
Ottawa,
LA was down there. I
LA.
mean,
Yeah. So
Anaheim. Like there were a lot worse teams that could have used
exactly.
that number one pick rather than the New York
Exactly.
Rangers.
Exactly. So to me, this whole lottery thing for the NHL is kind of a little bit of a scratching my head thing, but I do
Well,
get it. So, and I like what they're doing now
mm-hmm.
because of what happened last year and in previous years and things of that nature. So it at least guarantees the worst two teams are going to get number one and number two pick.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, okay, so you draw a lottery ball to see who gets the number one, and then whoever gets the number one obviously gets, then the other team gets the number two. Cool.
Yep.
And then they're drawing lottery balls for the remaining 13 teams to see where they finish. So you could be the 15th team, and you might be able to pick what, fourth or no, fifth.
Fifth, 10 spots. Yeah.
Right. So you can only go 10 spots. So if you're 15th, the best you can do is fifth.
Rather than one, which it would have been before.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Exactly. So I agree. I think that was a good move for the NHL. I think that's gonna that might help to even some of the things out here. I think I don't know. I like the tweak. I think it's going to be good, and we'll see how it pans out after a couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. And they put the draft lottery in because of tanking. They were trying to avoid teams purposely having the worst record in the league, which happened back in the early 80s when Mario Lemieux was coming out of junior, and the Pittsburgh Penguins and New Jersey Devils had an epic tank battle of who could field the most minor leaguers in their lineup to try and get Mario Lemieux, and it ended up obviously going to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the rest is history. But Mario Lemieux could have been a New Jersey Devil. But that's what the fear of that level of tanking is what prompted the NHL to put in the draft lottery, because if the worst team was guaranteed the number one pick, then they were worried that they would basically do what those two teams did in the early 80s and purposely field a minor league roster and play your third string goalie every game and be like, yeah, we're the worst team, lose every game and guarantee yourself the top pick.
Well, that kind of hasn't changed, really, has it? I mean, can still...
You're not guaranteed the top pick now, so you can tank all you want, but you could drop down and it would not be worth it.
Well, you could tank and you would get guaranteed the top one or two picks.
Yeah, worst team can drop no further than third now. So You're still getting a top three pick, but when the generational talent is usually off the board at number one, if there is one.
But there has been others at other positions, and having that particular asset could vault you to get that number one piece.
Oh, that's true. You could trade the third and your first next year for the first this year. I mean, well, there's no way to completely make it foolproof, but that's why the league put the lottery in the first place, was because they didn't want it just to be guaranteed that the worst team gets the top pick, because then you're going to have a fight to be the worst team, basically.
I mean, I'm not trying to say that NFL teams don't tank per se, but it just seems like that's
the Jets had their chance last year and they blew it. Well, I don't know why they won 2 games at the end of the year. It made no sense.
And then the year before that, it was the whole tanking for Tua of the Dolphins, and they ended up winning so many. They still got him, but look, like I said, it just seems more rare in football than it does in hockey.
Yeah, that's the draft lottery changes. And,
I like it.
I overall like them as well. So we'll move on here to your number 2 story.
Okay. My number 2 story actually does kind of involve more of the games.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Seeing the Stars and the record-setting run Vasilevsky's streak at 12,
Yep.
and seeing the Stars end that the other night, that was record-setting. I think that right there probably vaulted him to the Vezina top voting
Oh yeah.
right
For me
there.
he was there already, but
Yeah, agreed.
absolutely.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
And on a stacked team that's probably gonna make hay through pretty much most of the playoffs. At least that's kind
They
of what it looks
should.
like.
They should.
Yeah, on paper, that's kind of what it looks like, especially when they get a certain player back. But that to me, I think, is significant when everything that's been happening this year
Mhm.
has been record-setting.
Mhm.
Where we're getting every night now, Ovechkin sets a record when he scores, right? And every time now Vasilevsky was going out there, every win in regulation was a record. Okay. And the same thing with the New York Islanders and their win streak.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Where they put together so many games and didn't lose in regulation for what, 11 games or 12 games? Like that's
Mhm.
just like, okay, this whole year has been record setting.
Yep.
Okay. Not just for the good, but some for the bad too.
Oh, perfect segue. Perfect segue. That was my third thing I wanted to talk about. The
Yep.
Sabres have broken a franchise record, and not the franchise record that you want to break if you're the Buffalo Sabres. They've now lost 16 games in a row. Or I guess technically it's a winless streak because they aren't all regulation losses. So the NHL actually officially by the record books isn't counting it as a 16-game losing streak. They're counting it as a 16-game winless streak, which is kind of a technicality there on the NHL's part. But either way, the Buffalo Sabres haven't won a game in over a month.
Yeah, that is a good way to
They've
put it.
lost 16 in a row, and they've been outscored 67-30 in that span, including being shut out 6 times. So, obviously, historically bad season for the Buffalo Sabres. I actually looked up the NHL records earlier today. The longest winless streak in NHL history belongs to the 1980-81 Winnipeg Jets, who went winless in 30 straight games. So Buffalo is not quite to all-time record level here. But Winnipeg went winless in 30 straight games back in
Oh,
80-81.
wow.
That was back when ties were a thing in the NHL. So I don't know how that affects the record keeping because obviously there are no ties anymore.
Yes, that
Somebody
does.
has to win the game. So that's kind of Buffalo potentially could have tied some of these games if ties were still a thing, but
Yeah.
they aren't, so they end up losing in overtime or the shootout.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's where like the discrepancy between a losing streak, I guess, and a winless streak comes in. And the record I believe for a losing streak belongs to the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's 18 games, so I think Buffalo's kind of going for that one. Even though the NHL I don't think is officially counting this as a 16-game losing streak. Basically everybody else is. So either way, it's been historically bad for the Sabres. They cannot win a game right now. As we saw with the Eric Stahl trade, they're complete sellers at the deadline. They're going to start to move guys out. And it feels like rebuilding year number 11 is about ready to begin here
Out
for the
of
Buffalo
2.
Sabres.
Rebuilding year number 11 out of 2,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The new coach there, and he's actually now out with COVID as well.
Yeah. Rookie GM running the show.
Right. So it's like when it rains, it pours, or, you know, up there in Buffalo, it just seems pretty bad. Here's kind of what I'm thinking about this team. And we talked about this. I don't know if it was last show, but maybe the show before. Well, we talked about maybe a Bruce Boudreau going there to rally this team.
Yeah.
Now, it does seem like they're probably going to be sellers at the deadline because they need some picks. But if you look at their roster, for the most part, there is some talent there. It's just that they're not playing.
Yeah.
So, like, if you look at Skinner, right, and you see, oh, he's a good shooter. He plays well on the power play. He's He does this, he does that. You
Not
look at
this year.
Well, okay. But what I mean individually, you look at these players individually and go,
Yeah, they
okay,
should be good. Like the Sabres should be a lot better than what they are when you
that's what I
look at the
mean.
roster on
Yeah,
paper.
that's what I mean. When you look at the talent that's on the team and some of the upcoming talent that they have coming, some of their draft picks that they
Cousins,
have coming up, some of those
Middlestat,
kids.
Reinhardt, Olafson. Obviously, Eichel's injured, but they have Hall. Like this team should be better than what they've been this season.
So
Darlene on the back end has been awful.
right, but you understand what I mean. They're
Oh
I
yeah,
don't think they're that far away. I think they need the right message, the right coach. I think Bruce Boudreau would probably be that good message, at least to get this team pointed in the right direction. I don't know if he could lead the team to a championship because he's never really been able to do that. That's the knock on him.
no,
But he would at least be able to bring a different type of culture into the Buffalo Sabres organization to try to get them pointed in the win direction instead of the loss direction.
that's the word right there. Culture. This team has a culture of losing. They've had talented rosters over the past 10 years. They've never been able to win with them. Doesn't matter. They've had Evander Kane. They've had Ryan O'Reilly. They had Robin Leonard as their goaltender
I
for
was
a
going to say, they
while.
even had Ryan Miller for years.
This team has a culture of losing.
Yeah.
And until that changes, you could put an all-star team in Buffalo Sabres uniforms and it feels like they would still lose. Because the talent level isn't always been the issue with this team. It's the culture and the attitude of losing that they have that they somehow need to break. And I almost think they need to just completely blow it up and start from scratch to break that culture.
Here's what I think. And this is why I think that this organization is broken. I think it's the ownership.
Oh, it absolutely starts at the top.
Okay.
100%. The ownership's a disaster there.
Right. So when you can't have good ownership, look, I am no CEO. I'm no mastermind of how to put things together with teams and hockey and the whole 9 yards. But I tell you what, if I was wealthy enough to own the Buffalo Sabres, my first call would have been to somebody like Ron Francis or Ron Hextall or somebody that's in hockey, that's been in hockey, that knows how to run a team, knows how to put teams together or whatever. Pick a GM and go, hey, how'd you like to come run the team? Because that's what Buffalo needs to happen. Instead of ownership running the team, they need hockey people in there running the team.
Yes.
And it seems which is why this is so disconnected, because they have such talent on the team, Jack Eichel and just go down the lineup, and there is talent on the team. They just can't play together because they're not the right talent to play with each other.
Oh yeah. The best thing Buffalo ownership could do would be to stay away from everything hockey related. Run the business, don't run the team.
Yeah.
Have hockey people run the team, because the Pagulas clearly don't know how to put a hockey team or management group together that can run a team. So the best thing that they could have done, and they should have done this years ago, is stayed out of it and brought in a president of hockey operations with experience and somebody who is, well versed in the NHL, has been around the league for a long time, knows exactly what they're doing, and say, you hire the GM, you work with the GM to find a coach, you put the roster together, and let the hockey people do hockey things, and let the business people do business things.
Thank you.
That is one of my biggest pet peeves in sports is when owners who don't know the sport try to meddle in the actual sport side of things. You are that wealthy because you are a business person, and you are probably a very, very good business person, but that does not mean you know how to run a team. And that goes for any owner in any sport. Let the sports people take care of the sport side of things. And that is something that the Buffalo Sabres, I think, have yet to learn. And I think they're getting to a point now where a lot of those experienced people don't want to go there.
Right.
Because they know that ownership is involved too much, and they know that they're going to be haggled, and they know that they're not going to have free reign to just run things the way that they want to run things.
Doing it, yeah.
The best thing the Sabres could do from an ownership standpoint is bring in a president of hockey operations with a lot of NHL experience and hand the keys to the car to them and say, you run the hockey side of things. We will write the checks. You make this a winning hockey team. And until the Pegulas do that, I think the Buffalo Sabres are going to be in the exact same position that they are in right now. Doesn't seem to matter who they bring in, what players they have. They have got to figure this out, and it starts at the top.
You know, it's funny that you mention that because there's some other teams that could probably heed that really good sound advice.
Oh, and there's a lot.
They belong in the NFL too, some of them. And we'll bring one to mind. Look, I'm not bashing, and you called it right, John. Jerry Jones is a heck of a businessman.
Yep.
He knows how to run his business. Okay? And more power to you, my man. That's how you became a multi-billionaire, whatever your deal is.
Yep.
However, you don't know how to run a franchise football team, and you're never going to get that coveted trophy as long as you're still running it.
Yep.
Okay? And that's just the shame of it.
Yeah. You need to bring in a football person to run your football operations.
This goes without saying. You need to bring in a hockey person to run your hockey organization.
Yep.
And I'm not saying this to be because I'm a homer or anything like that, but when you look at teams like what Philadelphia did, Ed Snyder was one of those owners that cared enough to try to bring in the people that knew hockey.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's teams out there that do that. Colorado is that type of team where they bring in people that know how to run hockey. Look at what Joe Sakic
was handed the reins to that team and was told, build us a winner, and look at the Colorado Avalanche.
Holy smokes! We're going to get into some of them guys later.
Even in Boston, I mean, Jeremy Jacobs is not a well-liked owner for the most part, but all of his... When he gets involved in something, it's always the business end of the league. It's always the money part. It was, salary cap, and it was always money stuff. Who actually runs the team? Cam Neely is the president of hockey operations. Like, he is senior vice president. I don't know what his official title is with the Bruins, but he runs the hockey side of things. Former NHL player. Runs the hockey side. Don Sweeney, former NHL player, is the GM, longtime Boston Bruin. Those are the people running the hockey side of things. The Jacobs family is not involved really in the hockey side of things. They handed that over to Cam Neely and Don Sweeney and said, you guys take care of that. The Jacobs worry about the business side of not just the Bruins, but the NHL, which is why they're heavily involved in that. But you have to have hockey people running the hockey thing. And most owners don't really know enough within the sport. They know more in the business. And it's, if you're going to be a successful franchise, you need to have people who know what they're doing in the actual operations of the team from a roster and management standpoint.
With the exception of a few teams that have been in families.
Yep.
Okay, most owners of sports franchises didn't get their money by owning a sports franchise.
No, definitely not.
Okay?
Yep.
Come on.
They got there through business.
Right. They got there through whatever their business was, whatever they were into, whatever. And then they decided, well, gosh, I have all this extra money laying around. I'll buy a team. Hey,
I'm a big fan. Might as well buy the team.
Right? I'm a season ticket holder. Let's buy the team. Then I can be guaranteed the best seats in the house, whatever. Whatever.
Yep.
So there's a big fine line there with that. Just because you're the owner of the team doesn't necessarily make you qualified to run the team.
Yep.
That's that fine line between being a good writer and then being a podcaster, or being a good podcaster and then being a writer.
Mm-hmm.
There's some guys that can do both.
Yep.
But just because you do one doesn't necessarily automatically mean you can do the other,
Oh
and,
yeah.
and vice versa. Just the way it is. You know what I mean? So, gosh. All right. Well, we kind of went off tangent on that one, but my final top story of the night will round us off perfectly,
Yep.
and take off the final 10 minutes. And my top story is the fact that the women's Isabel Cup uh, resumed today at
Yes.
5 p.m.
Yep.
And there was also a puck drop at 8 o'clock today, too,
Yep.
both on NBCSN,
Yep.
streaming on the app. And this is the continuation of the tournament that was started earlier in the year and that was postponed or because of COVID.
COVID. Yep.
Yeah. So the fact that they're back playing,
Huge.
Boston Pride faces the Toronto Six for one of the semifinal games, and it was really it was pretty one-sided game there after the second period, if you must know the truth.
Yeah.
But still awesome, awesome game. It was so awesome to see the ladies back on the ice. I love watching women's hockey because you get to see the skill, you get to see the talent, you get to see just the type of player that these folks are and how well they play. And they are not out there playing the body, they're playing the puck. That is a different level, if you ask me, in my personal opinion. Okay? Like, if you were to go to an NHL player and tell them you can only play the puck and not the man, right? That's an NHL All-Star game.
Yep. Yeah. That's a totally different style. That it would not be easy because I'm one that, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to play through the body. And when you take that away, that's a whole other skill set with incredible skating ability and incredible stick work that you have to be able to do when you can't just take somebody out.
Body position. You have to have perfect body position so that you're not impeding that player, so you're not getting called for interference. You know what I mean? So that's why I love watching women's Olympic hockey, because I get it. There's a lot of it's one-sided, where you get, the Canadian team versus the Japanese team, and the score is like 21-6 or 21-3 or okay, but I still like to watch, especially when the good teams come together, like Finland, like Canada, like United States. You know what I mean? When they come together during the Olympics to play. Watching these women do this is amazing. It should be highly touted. I think that the NHL should completely and utterly 100% put their everything behind this. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit on the box here, and I'm getting a little bit passionate about this, but I am so for this. I'm waving the little flag. I don't care what you want to call it. I would like to see a league for women prosper. I would like to see it be right up there with the men's league. Okay, I really, really would, because there are some very talented women playing this game of hockey.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All you have to do is look at the Olympics. All you have to do is look at the Hall of Fame. They're even putting women into the NHL Hall of Fame. Okay, so that's serious if you're asking me. Okay, that's serious.
Yeah, I think what I was going to add was it's really cool that this is on TV and that this is televised, because that is the next level for women's hockey, is this stuff being televised, these games being available on NBCSN the same way that regular NHL games are. And normally, forever, the only time you could see women's hockey was the Olympics. Once every 4 years, you got to watch the Olympics, and that was it. There was no real league for women. It was only the Olympic teams, and that was it.
Yeah.
And now we've had
to see, you never even got to see any of their tournaments to get to the Olympics.
Nothing was on until the Olympics, and that was it. You got to watch women's hockey once every 4 years. And now with the NWHL, solidifying itself as a league and getting bigger and more popular, these women now have a league to play in each and every season, and the same way that men do. And you're seeing the level of hockey get better. And you're seeing women's college hockey get shown more. Nesson, up here in New England, has shown a lot of women's games over the course of this winter and spring. The same way they show a lot of the Hockey East men's games, they've shown a lot of women's games as well from all the same schools, the UMasses, the Providences, the BUs and BCs,
Dakotas,
the Northeasterns, the Yukons. Like, they're showing women's hockey, much more than they ever did in the past, and it's continuing to grow. It's continuing to get bigger, and that's just making hockey bigger and making hockey continue to grow, and that's a really important step.
Go figure.
That's a really important step, is to get these games televised where people can watch them, and it's a really important step to growing the game and getting women's hockey up to the same level of notoriety as the men's game is, for sure.
Exactly. And this month being National Women's Month, this was a perfect thing for them to be able to display this. I can't put enough support behind this. It just goes to show you how this sport affects people's lives. Not just men, but women and everybody that straps on skates and a stick and some pads and goes out there and plays, has a chance to do something, go somewhere, play in a league, play, college, there's travel teams, there's all kinds of ways to play hockey now, especially in the United States. It's just grown exponentially just within the last 15 years. Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
And you're starting to see more and more of the women's game coming to the fore. And that's what I would very much like to see. I would like this to be able to be even bigger than the WNBA.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So those are our top stories, everybody. And that's going to bring us now to our first commercial break. When we come back, we get to do one of our favorite segments of the entire show. We'll be looking at the best teams in the league with Top Shelf, our weekly power rankings. But before that, we are going to hear a word from our sponsor, CCC Resorts. We want to give a huge thank you to Canine Country Club Resorts for their support for this show and everything that we do at Steel Flyers. They do a tremendous job there, and their services are unbelievable. We certainly fully support them, and they in turn have shown a ton of support for us as well. So a huge thank you to them, and you will now hear from our show sponsor, Canine Country Club Resorts.
Greetings. This is Steel Flyers from the Steel Flyers All Sports Network, and we have two very special guests. We are delighted to be joined by Tracy Musser and Nicole Howard from the Canine Country Club Resorts. Tracy and Nicole are both managers for CCC Resorts and work at the Windsor or at the club, one of two locations both in Manheim, Pennsylvania. Congratulations on your 30th year anniversary of being in business. Let me start off by saying this. Steel Flyer stands behind this company 100%. Taking care of Steel Flyer's furry friend for the last 2 years now, and they are a one-stop shop for everything your furry friend needs. In fact, let's find out what our friends at CCC Resorts offer. Nicole, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you. What are some of the great boarding services that you guys offer, and what do we have to do in order to get our furry friends taken care of when we are unable to travel with them?
Well, we like to bring everybody in for a tour first. That way they can see the behind the scenes, they can see where they stay, they can see where they play, and then we explain all of the fun things that we can add on to their reservation, whether it be one of our packages, either a nature walk, a ball time, or even a cuddle time.
Oh, wow, that sounds great. Boy, it sure sounds like a resort to me. So how are you today, Tracy?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Tracy, tell me, is it true that you guys have both an indoor and an outdoor pool at the Windsor location?
It is true. We've got one of each, so we're able to offer year-round swimming. The indoor pool is a great option for dogs who are swimming for therapy or rehab. It's got that sloped entry so they can wade into the water. Our outdoor pool is a little bit larger, and it's 4 foot deep the whole way across. And both of them are saltwater pools, so it's really easy on the dog's skin and coat.
Wow, that's very awesome. So then during the summer months, you have a much deeper pool outside and then a sloped entry shallow pool indoors for the dogs. Tracy, tell the folks how we can get some pool time.
Well, the first thing everyone does is come for an intro swim. We use that time to make sure the dog is comfortable in the water. We make sure they know how to get out of the pool safely, and we go over all the pool rules and etiquette with the clients as well. After that, they're able to schedule private appointments where they have the pool to themselves, or they can invite friends and have a whole group swim going on.
So after a dip in the pool, then it would have to be off to the groomers, right? I mean, our furry friends cannot go out looking their best. Nicole, what are some of the great services your top-notch groomers provide?
Our groomers, they specialize in full service grooms. We can do the basics, whether it be just a bath and a brush out or a blowout. Or for the extra pampered pooches, we can do nail dremels, we can do deodorizing soaks, and also facials.
Wow, man, that sounds like a resort if you ask me. Tracy, I know one of the main programs here at CCC Resorts is the WAGS program. The Steel Flyers dog is enrolled in this program. So why don't you tell the folks what is involved in this and how they can get enrolled?
Yeah, the WAGS program is our primary daycare option at the Windsor. It's designed to be a structured program for people who are looking for a set routine for their dog. They all come on the same days each week, which allows them to have set friends, and we know exactly what's going on with each group. So we do a little bit more activities, and we build more into their daily routine there. But we've got other daycare options as well for people looking for a little less commitment. We do an hourly care where you can drop them off and just pay by the hour. We also do a day stay option, which is great for the dogs that prefer human friends instead of making friends with other dogs. And then we have a traditional daycare option as well if you're looking for the occasional outing for your dog.
Wow, there you have it. A full service groomer, a daycare program, and an indoor and outdoor pool. What more could you ask for? Sure seems like CCC Resorts has everything covered. Remember, DOG, depend on God.
And we are back again. Huge thank you to CCC Resorts for their sponsorship and all of the support for everything here at Steel Flyers. Steel, it's time to get into one of our absolute favorite segments that we love to do each and every week. It's Top Shelf. It's our weekly power rankings where we look at the best teams in the NHL. And if you want to get things started here, Steel, we can just kind of go through starting at number 5.
Oh, man. I'll tell you what, I love doing this because this gives us a chance to talk about the best teams that are playing in the NHL, not just now, but over the last little bit.
Yep.
You know what I mean? We try to look at their last more than 5 or so games back. You know what I mean? That's kind of where we come from with this. We try to also base it off of quite a number of different factors, how the team's been playing, how many wins they've had, how many wins they won in a row, and who they've been playing and how well they've been playing. So a lot of factors go into this, but here we go. Number 5. For me, this week is the Vegas Golden Knights. Gosh, just for whatever reason, they just seem to pop back up on my list. They took a little hiatus and then they pop back on again.
Yep.
Well, what can you say about this team? Every time you think they're down, bang, they win.
Yep.
Okay, and they're just when you think this guy isn't going to do anything or whatever the case is, bang, they just blow it up. So what? That's the number 5 top power ranking team for me is Vegas. They dropped off a little bit last week, but I think they're back.
Yeah. Number 5 for me is the Washington Capitals. I had a really hard time putting this list together. And I had an even harder time cutting down the hot teams list to just 3 because there's way more than 3 right now. But
agreed.
That's jumping ahead a little bit. I had a hard time with this list putting only 5. I wish I could have put 7, but
so now when I was doing 7, it was bad juju.
No,
so now you want to do 7.
No, I said I wish I could. I didn't do 7 though.
I know.
Didn't actually do it, but I wish I could because it would have been a lot easier. But
I agree.
I have Washington at number 5. They're 21-7-4 on the season. They're still they've won 8 out of their last 10 games. They're still just rolling along. They're beating all the teams that they should beat. Hasn't necessarily been the most difficult schedule for them recently, but they're winning the games that they should win. So they're launching themselves up near the top of the East. A team I'm going to talk about in another minute or so has overtaken them again. As it's a big time fight at the top of the East right now between those two teams. Actually, Pittsburgh kind of pulled themselves into that mix too. So you could say 3 teams, but the Capitals are rolling, and they look like a really, really solid team. Top to bottom, they have depth. They're physical. They can score. They play well defensively. They're getting good goaltending from their 2 young goalies. I got the Caps in at number 5.
I'm with you on that. I really am. And now that I look at my list, and I can't even believe I had him at number 5 last week, but okay. I have Washington at number 4.
Mm-hmm.
So you had Washington at 5. I had Vegas at 5. I had Washington at 4.
Yep.
For that very reason. They were number 2 on my list last week. Okay, and they were number 4 on your list last week.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also had Vegas on your list at number 5, where Vegas dropped off yours, but I have Vegas on.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's how tough this was.
Yeah, I have a new team coming on.
I know. And Washington has been playing just as well. They've been winning those games. Every time Ovechkin plays now, it's a new record.
Yep.
You know what I mean? This team is just they're the other stacked team that looks like they're going to be able to make some noise coming out of the East, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely agree with that 100%.
All right, my man.
My number 4 team is the team that is new on the list this week. Was not on it last week and is this week. The New York Islanders, the team that's ahead of the Capitals in the East right now. And the Islanders took a little bit of a dip when Anders Lee originally got hurt. I think they lost 3 straight games at that point.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's safe to say they've righted the ship since then. They've now won 3 in a row to make up for those losses. They are 22-8-4 on the season. They are leading the East Division. And it came down really to, do I keep Vegas on the list and knock one of these 2 teams off?
See,
or
that's
do
where
I
was.
Do I put both of the East teams on? And with the way that they've been playing recently and how many games out of their last 10 that they've won, I had to put the East teams on. And the Islanders, after that little bit of a dip, I think they had to readjust a little bit without Anders Lee. They've readjusted, and they're just right back to ripping through everybody like the New York Islanders tend to do. So, this team's been phenomenal of recent. They've got 22 wins on the year, which is not quite best in the league. I think it's tied for second most in the league right now. So, they are they're one of the best teams. And I actually put New York over Washington because I think the Islanders' more defensive style of play is going to be better for them long term than what the Capitals are going to be doing come playoff time. And the Islanders' goaltending is absolutely better than the Washington Capitals. So the Islanders' goaltending is up there, probably top 3 in the league between Varlamov and Sorokin.
Okay, I'm with you on that, but this is why this was tough for me too, because I had the New York Islanders at number 5 last week.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that loss there to Anders Lee, those couple of games there, they dipped for me. But this is why this was so tough, because when I was looking at Washington and Vegas, and I was like, oh man, and then I looked at my list and went, oh my gosh, New York Islanders are not on the list.
Yeah.
Oh man, and then I looked at your list and went, well, that's all right. John's got it. We're good.
That oh man is when I put my list together and Vegas wasn't there anymore, and I was like, wait. Aren't they still in first place? How's Vegas not on the list?
Okay, so that's why this is tough. So so your number 2 or 4 team was New York.
Mm-hmm.
My number 4 team was Washington. My number 3 team is the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yep.
And this team I had them 4th last week, so now they've jumped up to 3rd. This team just continues to roll. They just continue to ride. And any injury that comes along, the next man up. Any COVID that comes along, no big deal. Any, they lose a couple games, bang, they turn around, win a couple of games.
Yep.
What? Carolina, to me, I think at 22-7-3, to me, I think they're one of the premier teams in the league right now.
Yeah.
And for me, they garner a number 3 spot as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'm going to be mentioning Carolina in just a second here, but my number 3 team is the Colorado Avalanche. 21-8-3 now on the season, and Colorado being on the list is probably the main reason that Vegas isn't. Because the Colorado Avalanche are finally healthy, and boy, are they a juggernaut now that they're healthy. This is the first time this year that they've actually had pretty much everybody in the lineup. And, McKinnon's going. Rantanen's been great all year. Makar is back. Like, this team is finally healthy, and they finally look like the Colorado Avalanche were supposed to look this season. And while the first half wasn't overly impressive, now that they've got those injured players back, they've been real impressive.
Yes.
And I have a feeling that they might rip it in the second half of the season here because assuming they're able to keep this level of health. But big man, time. The way that teams are playing recently, I couldn't not have Colorado jump up into the top 5 here because they are looking like the top team that could maybe be the best team in the league now that they have their full lineup playing and are a healthy team for really the first time this season.
That's perfect point. This is about the first time that they've been healthy all the way for the first part of the season. The moves that they made in the offseason are starting to pay dividends now.
Yep.
With some of the savvy moves that they made as far as acquiring players and things of that nature. Their goaltending has been phenomenal.
Grubauer just keeps on ripping wins, and I mean, I'm going to talk about Grubauer in a future segment, so don't worry about that, guys. I won't go into detail here.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil it, but the fact that you have Colorado at number 3, I have Carolina at number 3, and I might as well just roll right into it because I have Colorado at number 2.
Yeah, and I have Carolina at 2, so we just flip flop those two.
But for those very reasons, this is the first time that Colorado has had everybody back healthy.
Yep.
This is the first time that everybody's been playing as one. They're clicking. Yep. They're just winning the games that they should be winning. It doesn't seem to matter what kind of adversity that they have gone through. They've just been able to continue to move on, get points. Even games where they weren't necessarily winning all the time, they were getting to those matches where they could try to get the points that they could try to do, or you know what I mean? They didn't lose by a lot when they did. You know what I mean?
Yep. 100%.
And boy, they've been lighting it up.
Yeah, recently, I mean, Colorado's just on fire now.
So your number 2 team was
Carolina.
Carolina. Okay, yeah.
I mean,
there you go.
22-7-3. I mean, Carolina to me is right up there with the best in the league, and they just keep on rolling. They're extremely well coached. They're good in all phases of the game. They're very deep up front. Their back end is, I mean, one of the best defense cores top to bottom in the entire league, maybe the best. I mean, there's really nothing you could even pick at with the Carolina Hurricanes as far as like needs or anything. Like I wouldn't do anything at the trade deadline if I'm the Hurricanes.
Oh no, yeah, no.
I would not touch this lineup. I would go right into the playoffs with this group and see how far you can take it.
No, yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, no.
No tinkering needed here.
Please, touchy.
Yeah.
It's funny. They housed Vegas yesterday, 5-1. Colorado did.
Yep.
Right. So I mean, you can't deny the fact that this team is just playing so well. All right. So drum roll for number 1.
Number 1.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there you go. I heard it in the background.
Number 1 here. We have the same number 1.
We have to.
It's clear. Tampa Bay Lightning.
I know. Yeah,
it's
Tampa
clear.
Bay Lightning. Yeah.
24-7-2 now on the season.
50 points.
50 points already this year for Tampa Bay. 24 wins leads the league as well. 24 wins is the most in the NHL.
33 games. They
They've won
played 33
24
games.
out of 33 games.
they played 33 games and they have 50 points already.
Oh
Holy
my
smokes!
This team's just loaded. I mean, I feel like we say the same thing about the Lightning every week. They're just loaded. They're the best team.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's funny. We had this team on our list last week too, at number 1.
Oh yeah, and probably the week before that too.
And probably, I mean, I'd have to go back and look at some of the old notes, but yeah.
Yeah, I
50 points. They are a plus 42 differential. They have 120 goals for.
So they have the best goaltender in the league. They have the best defenseman in the league.
Wait, hold on. The best goaltender in the league, who's just come off a historic 12 in a row win stretch, right? Okay, continue.
They have the best defenseman in the league, who's probably going to win the Norris Trophy this year.
Probably.
And they have, I think, the best team offense in the league as well.
Oh, wait. Hold on. Who's going to come back to them during the playoffs?
The best right wing in the NHL, Nikita Kucherov. It's just it's an embarrassment of riches with the Tampa Bay Lightning.
If they don't do it again this year,
well, they're gonna have to blow it up in the offseason because of the cap. So yeah, this is the year. If Tampa is gonna win another one, they got to go back to back and do it this year, because this coming offseason, things are gonna have to really change.
It's going to get real dicey.
Somebody big is going. Probably multiple players.
Because the reason why the best right wing is not in the game right now, because from what I understand, he could potentially be in and playing.
Hip surgery.
Yeah. But the fact that they're so far above the cap.
Oh yeah, he has a $9.5 million cap hit that they cannot bring back until the cap is.
That's what doesn't count, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. They can't bring him back now. So as soon as they make the playoffs, it's like, oh hey, here we'll just slot you in as the right wing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You know, no problem. It's all good. You didn't see that, did you? Yeah, right. Okay, sure. We didn't see that. The best team in the league now just suddenly gets fracking better. Okay. There's no way you can't discount this team as being the number 1 team now.
No.
If they don't do it this year, then it's probably it's probably gonna be it. This is their shot. They won a cup last year. They seemingly have the best chance compared to the team that made it last year with them, Dallas Stars. This team seems to have more of a shot to get back to that same spot.
Oh yeah, absolutely, without a doubt.
Yeah. And how could you not, with the stacked lineup that they have? And it's not, and you can't just go, oh, well, they have Stamkos, but see, he's not like lighting it up like Connor McDavid is, or Austin Matthews, or anything like that. That's what I mean.
The injuries have taken their toll on Stammer. He's still a great player, but he's not going to be at that leading the league type level that he once was before the injuries.
He doesn't need to be anymore now.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be. So
no, he doesn't need to be, because they've built a good enough team with Point and Cirelli and Killorn and Palat and everyone else there that he doesn't need to be.
Exactly. And there you have it.
So Tampa Bay, number 1 in our power rankings yet again, and unless something drastic happens, I don't really see that changing too much over the course of the season, unless they go on some sort of 4 or 5 game losing streak or something like that. But I don't see this Tampa team doing that. I just think they're too good, and that they may lose 1 or 2, but I don't think they're going to be losing long stretches of games in a row. And
they have lost like 2 games.
Yeah, there's been losses in there for sure. They just lost to Dallas. Was it last night or the night before? Might have been last night. They just lost to Dallas, but
just last night.
Last night they lost to Dallas, but it's like they've only lost 9 games all year. They've won 24 out of 33 games. I mean, how do you? I mean, nobody else is at that level right now.
That's what I mean. It's like, gosh, you could.
Carolina, I guess, has a chance at it, because they all. Oh no, Carolina's already lost 10. Colorado even has lost 11. New York is lost.
Washington has only lost 7. New York has 11.
Only lost 8. I'm
Oh.
Regulation and OT losses.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, that's not just regulation losses. Tampa has 9 losses in total, including OT losses. So like they're the only team with single digits, I believe, but combined losses this
Yeah,
year.
but Carolina only has 1 more.
Yeah, they
Colorado
have
has
10.
2
Colorado
more.
has
New York only
11.
has 3 more. You know
Washington
what I mean?
only has 11.
Right. So what? It could happen. It's McWorld. It could happen. All right, man. I think that was the best. That's one of our favorite segments.
It is, and we just spent like
Top
20
shelf.
minutes on it.
Power rankings. All right. So, this is another great section here where we get to break down a quick little
and
our
this gets to
best
be
game
quick,
of the
too.
past week.
Yep.
And this is a chance where we get to give you guys our thoughts on what we thought the most exciting game was to watch or to take in or to observe or to call.
Yep.
No matter how you slice it.
Yep.
So, John, what was your best game of last week?
We have to go back to Wednesday night, Anaheim versus Minnesota. West Division matchup. Minnesota hangs on for a 3-2 win over the Anaheim Ducks, and it was a very physical, hard-fought game. Couple fights in the first period, a lot of big hits. Came right down to the wire
there
as
was
well.
Some big hits.
Oh, yeah. And Minnesota, who's red hot right now, it has been for a while now. I mean, still right up there with the best in the West. Minnesota hangs on for the 3-2 win, but it was a very close game. It went right down to the wire. It was fun to watch. Really had a playoff feel to it, even though Anaheim is not a playoff team this year.
Yeah,
it had a playoff feel to the kind of game that it was. And obviously, you know, when you get a close game like that, it's always great. But then you add the physicality and the hitting and the fights in on top of it, and it really is the best kind of hockey that you can see.
I was just gonna say that's a recipe for. Oh yeah, that was a good. See,
yeah.
If you weren't gonna pick this game, I was gonna.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
And fortunately, you were able to get yours out before me.
Mm-hmm.
So my next one here is, unfortunately, man, you can't be mad. Okay, but I thought this was a really good game. I really did. I thought this was one of the better games. It was the game that was played on the 25th, where the New York Islanders played the Boston Bruins. Their first game back.
Yep.
After being on a little COVID break there.
Yep.
Yeah. And Boston looked really good coming out of the gate. Scored the first 2 goals. Looked really good. And then New York Islanders came out and scored 3. And then real late there in the third, Boston ties it up.
Yep.
And to me, I thought this was one of those games where, I mean, Rask went out early.
Yep.
He only made like 6 saves, was out in the first period.
Yep.
So Halak had to come in off the bench after not playing. This is why I thought this was one of those games
yep.
that you should watch, because you got to see just how good Boston really is. And even though they played up against New York Islanders, who's the hot team, Boston kind of held their own there and scored the first 2 goals and looked really good. And even Halak, I think, looked good coming in for relief as well, too. So I thought this game was good. I liked the overtime, the fact that it went into overtime. Unfortunately, 21 seconds in, it was over. But
yeah.
This was my game of the week.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good game. It was back and forth. As a Bruins fan, you never want to see your team blow a 2-goal lead. So that was a little frustrating. But again, I mean, Boston, when they're healthy, should be a team that can compete with those other top teams. It's just putting a full game together. But they were able to get a point out of it, which obviously every point means so much this year. That helps out.
Especially against New York Islanders.
And against the Islanders, a team ahead of you in the standings. You know, you don't want to let them get too far away. So
exactly.
Yeah, so those were our games of the week this week. Every week there's great hockey, and these are just 2 examples of the many great games that were in the NHL this week. And
yeah, it was tough. It was tough to pick these 2.
Very tough. And I'm sure that later in the show, when we do games of the week looking ahead, we're going to get to see some matchups that I think are going to be really,
slightly
really good. Absolutely.
Awesome sauce,
All
man.
right, so that brings us now to our next segment. It is time for 3 stars of the week. This is where we look at individual players who we would name a star for the entire week. If you want to start at number 3.
Yeah, I'll start it. Okay.
Well, we can just do this one 3, 2, 1. Just your 3 stars and go through the
and
statistics.
then you can do yours. All right, cool.
Yeah.
This is so tough every week.
Mm-hmm.
To try to pick some of these guys and to try to get everybody represented and everything like that. And I looked down on my list and I went, oh, I have 2 guys from the same team. Well, all right, I'll run with it.
Yeah, this is tough because there's so many guys that end up with like the same number of points and goalies that all go 3-0 with a shutout, and like it's tough to separate.
Which one do you pick?
Yeah, it's tough to pick which one because there's so many guys with similar stats.
Okay. I'm with you. So this is why this was so tough.
Yep.
My number 3 star of the week I have to give to a goaltender, Philip Grubauer from the Colorado Avalanche.
Mm-hmm.
3 games played, .973 save percentage.
Yep.
2 goals against. Hold on a sec. Oh, sorry. I was getting a little froggy there.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that. All right. 3 games played, .973 save percentage. He has 2 goals against. He made so many all the saves. Are you kidding? He also has 1 shutout.
Yep.
Here's the best part. He has an assist.
Goalie point. Let's go. Goalie point.
And a point. So he's got an assist and a point, right? So that's why that has to make number 3 star for me.
Yep.
And he's 3-0 in those 3 games. Okay.
Yep.
Number 2 star for me for the week is a certain player from the Colorado Avalanche named Gabriel Landeskog.
The captain.
Captain of the team. I couldn't help it. I had to put him up there. Come on. 8 points, 4 games played, 3 goals, 5 assists for 8 points, a +2. He had a power play goal, and he's averaging 19.5 minutes of ice time.
Mm-hmm.
The captain. I mean, this team, we talked about them before. They are stacked. It was tough picking between the guys that were on the list. When I look at your list and I went, yeah, I looked at him too. Yeah, I looked at him too. Yeah, I looked at him too.
Mm-hmm.
It was tough for me to put these guys on here. And then I went, oh, there's 2 guys from Colorado. But come on. 4 games played, 3 goals, 5 assists for 8 points and a +2. Okay, I'll take that all freaking day long, especially out of my captain. Thank you very kindly.
Absolutely.
My number 1 star of the week is a name that I didn't think I would be ever putting on this list. And no, it's not who you think it would be. It is Mika Zibanejad for the New York Rangers.
You must hate him at this point.
It's not a hate because I don't hate anybody.
Yeah.
You know? I'm a Christian man, so I don't hate anybody. But let's just say
you must be sick of watching him play the Flyers.
Yeah, there's a good way to put it. Because if it ain't him, then it's Panarin. Or if it ain't him, it's freaking Kreider. If it ain't him, pick somebody.
Yeah.
All right. So Zibanejad played New York Rangers, 3 games played, 4 goals, 5 assists for 9 points. He was a +5.
Yep.
Gosh, man, he really has benefited from Panarin coming back from his little government hiatus or whatever was going on there with Panarin. But ever since he's come back, him and Zibanejad have just been exploding.
Yep.
For whatever reason. He had 2 game-winning goals, 1 power play goal with 20.5 minutes of total ice time. That's my number 1 star of the week, Mr. Zibanejad.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Shameless plug. I have a video coming out tomorrow about Zibanejad and the Rangers. Because recently it's been wow.
Boy, has he played well with Panarin coming back.
Oh yeah, his whole season has turned around. But we're gonna get into my 3 stars now. Number 3, I have Cam Talbot, goaltender for the Minnesota Wild, and this is an interesting pick because it looked like Kakkonen was taking over the starting job for Minnesota, and then Talbot comes back and
he was hurt.
he spent a little time out, hurt.
He
right?
goes 3-0-0 last week with a goals against average of exactly 1 per game on the dot. And a .967 save percentage. He had 1 shutout. He stopped 89 out of 92 shots against over the past week for Cam Talbot.
Wow. That's getting it done.
Yeah. Unbelievable goaltending from Talbot. And obviously, goaltending has been a big reason why the Minnesota Wild have been as good as they've been. They're also getting some great offense out of that team this year from guys that you wouldn't necessarily expect it from, and then some other big guys stepping up.
I know.
Playing at a level that, is taking that team to the next level. So
agreed.
Great things going on in Minnesota this year. And Cam Talbot, what a week for him. I mean, when you stop 89 out of 92 shots, you're doing your job as a goaltender.
That's getting it done. That's funny. We both had goalies.
I'm not done with the goalies.
3 stars. Well, well, all right. Sorry. I'll shut up now.
I honestly could have gone with just 3 goalies.
Yeah, me
We
too,
could have had goalies of the week and then players of the week because
Hey.
Nah, that would take too long. We'd be going 3-hour shows at that point.
Okay, can't do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
My number 2 star was Adam Fox, defenseman for the New York Rangers.
Yeah.
4 games played. He has a goal, 9 assists for 10 points in 4 games, a +4 rating, and he's playing over 25 minutes a night, 25.04 per game in the last 4. Obviously the number 1 defenseman for the New York Rangers. And this kid, he doesn't get the same recognition as the Quinn Hughes and the Cale Makars. He is right there with those two as far as young defensemen in the league. He is right there. And he is going to be getting Norris consideration in the very near future.
Should be. Here's the thing. It was hard not picking him.
Yeah.
It really was hard not picking him because especially, and it wasn't just the game against the Flyers where he got all those points.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it was a couple other games before that where he didn't have any goals, but he has 4 assists.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, gosh, when you're putting up assists like that, all right.
Yeah. No, he's been unbelievable this year for the Rangers. And obviously, New York as a team had a really tough start to the season. He didn't have the greatest start to the season, but, man, I mean, so much. Zibanejad's coming around. Panarin coming back has been huge. Fox is getting significantly better, and the Rangers as a team are getting significantly
Kreider's been playing even
Kreider's been unbelievable with the goal scoring.
Lafreniere has actually been fitting in.
Yep.
Fitting in now. They're calling it the rookie line or the young man line or whatever they're calling it, where he's in and he's been gelling with those guys too. So he's actually getting some good quality time up there with the Rangers.
Yeah, they're making a push right now. They're coming for a playoff spot, and we'll see if they can keep it up. But Adam Fox, a big reason why. Please pay attention to Adam Fox because this kid deserves just as much of attention as Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar do because he is right up there at that level.
Agreed.
All right, that brings me number one. My number 1 star of the week, Philip Grubauer. I had to go with another goalie here. Philip Grubauer of the Colorado Avalanche. These numbers are nuts.
I know.
3-0-0. A 0.67 goals against. He's not even giving up a goal per game.
That's sick.
He's giving up 2/3 of a goal per game over the past week. He stopped 73 out of 75 shots that he faced. That's a .973 save percentage. And he had a shutout in there. In the 2 of the 3 games that he didn't get a shutout, he only gave up 1 goal. So that's where the .67 goals against comes from. I mean, realistically, that's as good of a week as you're going to have as a goaltender. You're probably not going to shut out 3 teams in a row. It's highly unlikely. Realistically, this is about as good as it gets.
Okay, so if you do the math, that's about, on average, 25 shots a game.
Which isn't a lot. Which
isn't
means
a lot.
Colorado has done a good job of limiting shots against.
Right. So that's the other thing you have to take into consideration too. He's only facing 25 shots per game on average.
Yeah,
So
just the numbers here. In the last 3 games, Cam Talbot's faced 92 shots. Grubauer
big
faced
difference.
75. That is a
Big
pretty
difference.
significant difference.
Exactly.
But the
And
goalie's got to
same
make
amount
the
of
saves
games.
that he needs to make, and Grubauer's been doing that, especially of recent for the Colorado Avalanche. And I mean,
Yep.
I saw 0.67 goals against average, and I'm like, well, there's your number 1 star right there. Like, this isn't even a contest.
Yeah, but when I saw 9 points and 4 goals and 5 assists, I was like, oh gosh, a point a game, a power play goal, 2 game-winning goals, 20 minutes of ice time. I had to do that number 1.
Mm-hmm.
But I got Phil Grubauer on the list, though. He is my number 3, though. So there you go.
That's our 3 stars of the week.
Yep.
And
awesome sauce.
Now it's time to look at hottest and coldest teams, which this is always fun to go through. And obviously we won't take too long doing this. Just kind of go through the records, and we like to start with the hot. We like to start with the hot,
the positive,
the positive side of things. We don't want to rag on the bad teams first. We want to get the good in there and let everyone know that some of these teams are playing really, really well right now. So,
how about if you go first on this one, John? Give us your 3 hottest teams.
All right, my 3 hottest teams coming in at number 3, the Colorado Avalanche. 8-1-1. 8-1-1 in their last 10. They won their last game to get back into the win column after dropping one in a shootout the game before. Really, there were multiple teams to choose from. Again, this list was really hard to cut down to 3 because there were a lot of teams with 8 and 7 wins in their last 10. So
exactly,
cutting this list down was not easy. But I had to go with Colorado just because they've been tearing it up recently, especially since they've gotten healthy and they've gotten those guys back. They've looked like how I thought the Avalanche were going to look this year. I had to get them on the list without a doubt. Number 2, the Minnesota Wild, 8-2-0 in their last 10, but on a 3-game winning streak. And I've already talked so much about Minnesota. I mean, we've got their goaltending with Talbot and Kakkonen, but most recently Talbot. They're getting scoring. They're getting good defensive play. I mean,
both have been playing well, stepping up.
Yeah, their decor is very, very good, as it has been. So that's nothing new. But Minnesota's rolling right now, and absolutely one of the best teams in the West. And at number 1, I have the New York Islanders. I've been so impressed with this team. They've gone 8-2-0 in their last 10. They've won 3 in a row. And they had that, like, their bounce back from that little dip when Lee got hurt has been so impressive to me because they had every excuse in the world to kind of
lose.
They had every excuse to lose. They had every excuse to kind of, I'm not saying fall off a cliff and, like, drop out of the playoffs or something like that, but they had every reason to just kind of fall back a little bit and go into one of those slumps where maybe they only play 500 hockey for a couple weeks. And they didn't. They lost, I think, 2 or 3 games, and then they got right back to being the New York Islanders. And coming out of that injury, still being this level of team, has been super impressive to me. So I have them at number 1 as the hottest team.
I had to fight this. This was a tough list for me. And
this was brutally tough.
It was. And unfortunately, I have 2 of the same teams that you have on your list, and one of my other teams dropped off because I couldn't decide between Washington and the New York Islanders.
Yeah, that's kind of been the battle in all of these good lists has been, who do you put on, the Islanders or the Capitals? Because their records are identical. They're both playing great. Like, it's
exactly.
Tough
I put Washington.
Yeah.
As my number 3 hottest teams, 8-2-0.
Yep.
They've been playing very well. I think Laviolette has that team rallied round, and their goaltending has stepped up.
Yep.
Has played well, and their team has played well. Wilson back, I believe tonight or tomorrow.
He came back.
Or he back last week.
He came back against the Rangers. This past week.
Okay, so that's like a free agent acquisition for them. So okay, I got Washington at number 3
Yep.
As my hottest team. My number 2 hottest team is your same number 2 hottest team, and that is the Minnesota Wild.
Yep.
For the exact same reason. I think they've been lighting it up in the West. They're winning those games. They're doing the things that they need to do to win those games.
Yep.
They've been playing with their freaking heads off. You know what I mean? Just night in and night out. The fact that Cam Talbot has been playing well, the fact that you're getting, contributions from the back end, from the, the depth. You're getting guys, you know what I mean? This team has just been playing really well. I like what they're doing. I think they have a good shot.
Yep.
My number 1 hottest team, and this was why this list was so tough. I put Colorado Avalanche, McKinnon, Landeskog, Grubauer. The reason why this team is playing so well, the fact that everybody's coming back, everybody's healthy, everybody's clicking on all cylinders. Sakic has been a freaking guru up there, and Colorado is just looking like that team that's just gonna go, oh, so you picked that team to win, huh? Well, we got something to say about that.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they do. So that's my 3 hottest teams: Colorado number 1, Minnesota number 2, Washington number 3.
All right, there we go. Now we will have to switch things over to the other side, the cold teams, teams that are just not playing all that well right now.
That's a good way to put that.
Yeah, and I guess we'll get into it at number 3.
Yeah.
This came down to 2 teams for me, and looking at your list, it was between the team that I put and the team that you put at number 3. So actually, why don't we should do our list together, because they're basically the same.
With one team difference.
Yeah, and the team difference was the one that I was debating over, whether to put the team that I put or the team that you put. So
me too.
We might as well do this list together.
Okay.
My number 3 team is the Detroit Red Wings, 3-6-1 in their last 10 on a 3-game losing streak.
Okay. My number 3 team is the Philadelphia Flyers. They have not been able to do anything. 3-6-1, lost 2 in a row.
Yeah.
They're not just losing. They're not just losing. They're getting housed.
Embarrassed, yeah.
Yeah.
I almost put Philly there instead of Detroit.
And I didn't want to put Detroit back on the list because I thought, oh, man, Detroit has been on the list for so long. And I didn't want to put them back on.
Yeah.
So I put Philadelphia on there. Hey, look at that. Yeah, that's right. That's a Philadelphia Flyers jersey back here. A Lindros one, actually, if you must know.
I bet you'd love to have him back.
Gosh, I would love to have half of him back.
Oh, yeah. Bring back Johnny LeClair, too.
Oh, and stop it. Yeah. So, all right. Number 2, both of us picked
the Anaheim Ducks.
All right.
Easy choice. 3-7-0, 3-game losing streak. Struggling. I mean, it's the Ducks. This is what we expected, but they're still one of the coldest teams in the league.
The only other team that's kind of jumping off out there too is, which, I mean, we could have probably have thrown them in there. The only difference is that they have a couple more points than the other teams, so I guess you can't. But Ottawa's not really playing all that well either.
No, but they're they beat the Flames twice though.
Okay, but okay.
I don't think they're at this level. Anaheim's been pretty bad.
Yeah. All right. Number 1 coldest team in the league is,
obvious.
Wait for it, the Buffalo Sabres.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that was easy.
I'm not even going to hammer on there because we talked so much about them early in the show. They haven't won in 16 games. That's all you need to know.
And there you have it, folks. Yeah. Gosh, our coldest teams are Buffalo, Anaheim, Philadelphia, and Detroit. Oh, wait, that's 4.
I had Detroit on there. You had the Flyers, but Anaheim and Buffalo, same for both of us. And that brings us now to the end of this segment and to our final commercial break. So when we come back, we'll be doing something that is always a lot of fun. Our game picks, even when we're not good at it, it's still fun to do.
Exactly.
But before that, we are going to hear once again from Canine Country Club Resorts. Want to give a huge thank you to them for their support of all of us at Steel Flyers. And here is a word now from our sponsor.
Greetings. This is Steel Flyers from the Steel Flyers All Sports Network, and we have two very special guests. We are delighted to be joined by Tracy Musser and Nicole Howard from the Canine Country Club Resorts. Tracy and Nicole are both managers for CCC Resorts and work at the Windsor or at the club, one of two locations both in Manheim, Pennsylvania. Congratulations on your 30th year anniversary of being in business. Let me start off by saying this. Steel Flyer stands behind this company 100%. Taken care of Steel Flyer's furry friend for the last 2 years now, and they are a one-stop shop for everything your furry friend needs. In fact, let's find out what our friends at CCC Resorts offer. Nicole, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
Doing great, thank you. What are some of the great boarding services that you guys offer, and what do we have to do in order to get our furry friends taken care of when we are unable to travel with them?
Well, we like to bring everybody in for a tour first. That way they can see the behind the scenes, they can see where they stay, they can see where they play, and then we explain all of the fun things that we can add on to their reservation, whether it be one of our packages, either a nature walk, a ball time, or even a cuddle time.
Oh, wow, that sounds great. Boy, it sure sounds like a resort to me. So how are you today, Tracy?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Tracy, tell me, is it true that you guys have both an indoor and an outdoor pool at the Windsor location?
It is true. We've got one of each, so we're able to offer year-round swimming. The indoor pool is a great option for dogs who are swimming for therapy or rehab. It's got that sloped entry so they can wade into the water. Our outdoor pool is a little bit larger, and it's 4 foot deep the whole way across. And both of them are saltwater pools, so it's really easy on the dog's skin and coat.
Wow, that's very awesome. So then during the summer months, you have a much deeper pool outside and then a sloped entry shallow pool indoors for the dogs. Tracy, tell the folks how we can get some pool time.
Well, the first thing everyone does is come for an intro swim. We use that time to make sure the dog is comfortable in the water. We make sure they know how to get out of the pool safely, and we go over all the pool rules and etiquette with the clients as well. After that, they're able to schedule private appointments where they have the pool to themselves, or they can invite friends and have a whole group swim going on.
So after a dip in the pool, then it would have to be off to the groomers, right? I mean, our furry friends cannot go out looking their best. Nicole, what are some of the great services your top-notch groomers provide?
Our groomers, they specialize in full service grooms. We can do the basics, whether it be just a bath and a brush out or a blowout. Or for the extra pampered pooches, we can do nail dremels, we can do deodorizing soaks, and also facials.
Wow, man, that sounds like a resort if you ask me. Tracy, I know one of the main programs here at CCC Resorts is the WAGS program. The Steel Flyers dog is enrolled in this program. So why don't you tell the folks what is involved in this and how they can get enrolled?
Yeah, the WAGS program is our primary daycare option at the Windsor. It's designed to be a structured program for people who are looking for a set routine for their dog. They all come on the same days each week, which allows them to have set friends, and we know exactly what's going on with each group. So we do a little bit more activities, and we build more into their daily routine there. But we've got other daycare options as well for people looking for a little less commitment. We do an hourly care where you can drop them off and just pay by the hour. We also do a day stay option, which is great for the dogs that prefer human friends instead of making friends with other dogs. And then we have a traditional daycare option as well if you're looking for the occasional outing for your dog.
Wow, there you have it. A full-service groomer, a daycare program, and an indoor and outdoor pool. What more could you ask for? Sure seems like CCC Resorts has everything covered. Remember, DOG, depend on God.
And we are back, everybody, and it's time for one of our favorite segments. Definitely one of my favorites, where we try and do some game picks for Saturday night. Obviously, not an easy thing to do. Predicting the NHL is never easy, but we'll see how we do this week, and obviously we want to catch you up on how we did last week as well.
Right.
So, time for some game picks, Steele. Let's have some fun.
Okay. By the way, we do not advocate making any kind of picks based off of what we do here.
Definitely
so
don't base them off what I say.
Please don't. We are not professional. This is strictly for fun. Okay, here we go. Last week we had some games. We also had a game that was postponed as well, so we didn't get a chance for that one.
Yep.
Last week's game starts off with Pittsburgh versus New Jersey. Pittsburgh won that game. We both picked Pittsburgh. The next game is the Nashville, Florida game. We all picked Florida. Florida won. The next game is Minnesota versus Colorado. We both picked Colorado. The next game was Chicago versus Tampa Bay Lightning. We both picked Tampa Bay Lightning. The next game was New York Rangers versus the Washington Capitals. We both picked Washington, and the Rangers won.
Nice.
The next game is the Philadelphia Flyers versus New York Islanders. We both picked Philadelphia, and of course, the Islanders won.
I'm done picking Philly.
Right, me too. Here's another one I'm done picking too. Columbus Blue Jackets versus Carolina. We both picked Carolina. Columbus Blue Jackets won. Here's another one too. Dallas versus Detroit. You picked Dallas. I picked Detroit. Right? So you won that one because Dallas won that game.
Yep.
Vancouver versus Montreal. Montreal won that game. So that's the one that I picked.
Yep.
Okay, you had Vancouver, I had Montreal.
Yep.
The next game was Calgary versus Toronto. We both picked Calgary. Toronto won.
Why did I pick Calgary?
I don't know. I don't know. Arizona versus Anaheim was the next one. You picked Arizona. I picked Anaheim. Of course, Arizona won. John, you get that one. Next game, St. Louis versus San Jose. Hey, we both picked St. Louis, and guess what? St. Louis won.
Okay.
And finally, Winnipeg versus Edmonton was the last game. We both picked in Edmonton, and Edmonton won. So the record for the week is John was 8-5 on your picks, and I was 7-6 on my picks.
Hey,
that puts you,
both over 500.
All right,
let's go.
That puts you at 50-39.
Ooh, that's getting decent.
It is, right? And I am still 42 for 47.
All right? You might be able to catch up.
Yeah,
you might be able to catch 500.
Yeah, if you suddenly pick 8 games that don't match,
if you catch, you might be able to catch 500. I don't know if you'll catch me, but you should be able to catch 500.
Oh well, thank you. Appreciate that.
I need to stay. I like when I'm more than 10 above 500. That's a decent record.
Well, yeah. We okay. So master prognosticator here.
I'm not.
Well, yeah, right. Okay, whatever. We're getting into the next picks here.
Yep.
And we got
Let's rip
it. The first games that we got here is the Buffalo Sabres versus the Boston Bruins.
Yeah. Buffalo can't win a game. So until I see them win a game, Boston.
Naturally, I'm going to pick Boston on this. So, well.
I may be pessimistic about the Bruins, but I'm not that pessimistic.
Especially against Buffalo?
Especially against Buffalo.
Okay.
Any other team, I'd probably pick the other team, but not Buffalo.
Okay, not that Buffalo. All right. I'm with you on that, too. I think, of course, I'm picking Boston on that one, too. Yep. All right, next game is New York Rangers versus the Philadelphia Flyers.
Mark me down for the New York Rangers. I am done picking Philly.
Yep, me too. I have New York Rangers on that game.
This will be the one that the Flyers win.
Yeah. So we just need to pick them to lose every time, then, right? Yeah, right.
Give me the Rangers.
What is going on in Philly? Throwing in the towel, maybe?
They look like a team that's given up.
Yeah. No, something's going on there. All right. Next game, Vegas Golden Knights versus Colorado Avalanche.
Talk about one of the best games. I mean, unbelievable, but unbelievable matchup. But man, Colorado's so hot right now. I gotta go Avs.
I'm also going to do this because they did win their last game 5-1 against that same team yesterday.
Yep.
So I'm going Colorado on this one as well too. All right, Columbus Blue Jackets versus Detroit.
Columbus, I just don't trust at all, but they've kind of pulled themselves back into the playoff race. They've got to win this game, Columbus.
And they are playing Detroit.
Yeah.
So as much as I want to, I'm going to pick Detroit.
Who?
This is why I'm not the prognosticator. This is why it's fun.
It is. That will be an interesting one to see what happens.
Because it is. Yeah, I want to see that happen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just do. Okay. Tampa Bay Lightning versus Carolina Hurricanes.
Two of the best teams in the league.
This is a coin flip as far as I'm concerned.
It is. Oh, I think that's a total coin flip. But at the end of the day, I think it might come down to goaltending. And Andrei Vasilevsky is the best goaltender in the NHL. So I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Lightning.
I am going to do the same thing based off of that very thing, too.
Yep.
Coming off of a 12-game historic win streak like that. One little loss against Dallas, whatever.
Yeah.
All right, next team up. We'll see how this is going to go. I like Tampa Bay in this one as well too. Don't get me wrong though, Carolina, one of our hot teams, one of our best teams.
Best team, absolutely.
This team is no joke, and this is going to be one of the best hockey games. So check this game out.
Absolutely.
All right, Edmonton versus Toronto.
This is so tough because Edmonton's been playing well. Toronto has not, but Toronto has owned Edmonton this year. Oh, this is tough. I'm going to take the Oilers. I like what I've seen from the Oilers recently. I'm going to go with them.
Edmonton came out of the gates flying. They were the best team in the league for a number of weeks, and then they just hit the cliff.
Toronto.
Toronto has, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Toronto started off exploding.
Yeah.
And Austin Matthews, 21 goals. Their team was doing really well. And then they hit the cliff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going with Edmonton Oilers on this because they not only have caught Toronto, but I think they've passed them as well, too.
No, they're 2 points behind still. Toronto picked up a win that got them back 2 points ahead. But it's three teams, Winnipeg, Edmonton, and Toronto are all right on top of each other for that top spot.
44 points, and then Winnipeg and Edmonton both have 42. So,
yeah,
there you go. All right, okay. So, all right. So the next game is New York Islanders versus Pittsburgh Penguins.
This is another great matchup.
It is. I mean, we're talking about mini playoff hockey before playoff hockey.
Absolutely. A lot of these are potential playoff matchups. I mean, Vegas, Colorado, Tampa, Carolina, Edmonton, Toronto, Islanders,
Pittsburgh. Yeah.
I mean, these are potential playoff matchups. I'm going to take the Islanders. I mean, I have them near the top of how many lists up here. So I'm going to go with the Islanders. I love the way that they've bounced back from those couple of losses. And I think they've figured out, how to play despite not having Anders Lee.
Agreed. And Pittsburgh is a little bit banged up.
Yeah, they've had Kapanen's injured. He's week to week. That's a big loss out of their top six. Malkin's out. He's injured. Yeah, I'm 100% going to go with the Isles in that one.
Me too. For that reason, because I think Pittsburgh is a little banged up, and the Islanders seem to be righting the ship and coming around for that stretch run here. You know what I mean? So we'll see how it's going to go. And what's going to end up? What might end up happening here with these New York Islanders is now that they've gotten some cap space freed up because of Anders Lee and his injury. Now they might actually be able to pick somebody up here at the trade deadline.
Absolutely.
So, okay, next game: Nashville versus Chicago.
Chicago, they got to. I mean, they've got competition for that fourth spot now. Columbus has pulled themselves up there. Dallas is trying to pull themselves back into it. Chicago's got to find ways to win games like this. So Blackhawks.
Yep. What he said. Florida versus Dallas.
Florida's not been playing that well recently. They've gone through a bit of a dip here. Dallas, I just don't trust at all. Like, I have no idea what Dallas team is going to show up on a nightly basis. The team that just beat the Lightning or the team that's a 500 team this year? Like, which stars are going to show up that night? I'm going to go out on a limb here a little bit and take Dallas in this one. This will be my out there pick.
Okay, I'm with you on this. I was kind of floating that way anyway, just because Florida's 5-5 in their last 10.
Yeah, they haven't been doing great.
Right. And Dallas has been on the come.
Yep.
So that's who I was going to pick anyway. So I'm going with Dallas on that one as well. Dallas is starting to finally look. It's all going to be interesting to see how things fall apart or come down here with this whole Hudobin and coach thing.
Yeah.
So interesting how Dallas is going to roll. But I like Dallas in this one. Yep. All right, San Jose versus the Arizona Coyotes.
Battle of two non-playoff teams. I'm gonna go Sharks. Sharks have been better as of recent. Like, they've hit a spot in their season where they're starting to maybe play a little bit better. So
okay,
Sharks.
I'm not picking the Sharks. I'm sorry. I'm going Arizona.
Perfect. I like when we're different because
me too. Because
one of us is right and one of us isn't.
Yeah, me. I'm wrong. You're right. That's how it works out. It's all good, man. I'm here to make you look good, man. That's what I'm all about, man. You know. All right, last game: Winnipeg versus Calgary.
Oh, Winnipeg. Calgary's a dumpster fire right now. They got to blow that team up. That's more of an off-season thing than trade deadline, but they've got to make some moves there.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Winnipeg.
All right.
So you know what? We just went through all of our games. We got them all picked. We're ready to go. And here's the next best part. Now we're into the games of the week segment.
Oh yeah,
And boy, have we got some games. I mean, we
some
talked
really
about
good
some just
ones.
tomorrow,
Yep.
right? So, all right, my man. Uh, let's get into the games of the week. These are the games that we feel that between Saturday through Thursday, these are the games that we feel that you as fans should be checking out
Yep.
or tuning into or listening to or whatever the case is. So, John, why don't you give us your 5 best games of the week coming up, and then I'll do mine.
Yeah. So I have Edmonton against Toronto. That one is no, do they? Yeah, that
29th.
one's 29th.
Yeah, that's Monday.
Oh, they play
Tuesday.
tomorrow too. They play tomorrow too. So they play both days. I didn't write down both days. That's my fault. But they play a couple games coming up. Obviously, huge matchup with huge implications on the line as far as the North Division is concerned. Edmonton right now is 2 points behind the Leafs. Leafs are in first place. Leafs have played very well against the Oilers this season, but are not playing very well right now. So, huge matchup there and a chance for Edmonton to maybe pull into first place, which would be massive for them. So, I think that's a massive North Division matchup. At number 4, I have the Islanders and Penguins. I also play tomorrow, and they play again, I think on Monday too. Huge game here. Again, East Division. Pittsburgh's been playing well recently, but they are banged up. But they've still found ways to win and accumulate these points. Islanders, I mean, I've already talked about them so much this show. They went through that little dip right when Lee got hurt. They've righted the ship from then, and they're right back to being the top team that they were before Lee got injured. They're rolling right now. That's a huge East Division matchup. Number 3, I have St. Louis versus Colorado. They play back-to-back on the 2nd and the 3rd of April. Yeah, I can't believe we're already into April.
I know. Wow.
Nuts.
All right.
But St. Louis and Colorado, that's a massive matchup out west. St. Louis is trying to hang on there. They haven't had a great season. Colorado is, obviously had their injury issues, but now that they're healthy, really starting to rocket themselves to the top. Huge rivalry matchup there too.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh and Boston, they play a couple of games this coming week, April 1st and April 3rd. East Division is so tight, and they're all fighting for these playoff spots. You really have 6 teams in it now. I mean, you almost want to drop the Flyers out and say that it's still just 5 with the Rangers pulling in. But, statistically, there's 6 teams really in the race now for those 4 playoff spots. So every point in the East Division is absolutely huge. So that's a couple of big games there for the Penguins and the Bruins. And my number 1 matchup is Minnesota against Vegas.
Yeah.
They play a couple times this week as well, April 1st and April 3rd. And just, Minnesota, what a year they're having. Vegas is, one of the best teams, as they usually are. And, Colorado's pulled in there now. St. Louis is still there. But Minnie and Vegas, those are huge games within the West Division and looking for, who's going to lead that division.
Exactly.
And who's going to, I think the 4 playoff teams are kind of known, but we have no idea what order they're going to finish in. And
yeah, it does kind of seem like they're all just kind of jockeying there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's a huge game every time between when those top 4 teams play each other for jockeying for playoff seeding. So, massive one there. And I know Minnesota and Vegas played a couple weeks ago, and it was a great couple of games, and I'm expecting this one to be just as
really
good,
good
if
games.
not better. So,
Agreed.
Really excited for those.
Awesome sauce, man. I'll tell you what, man. I have a couple on here that are similar, and I tried not to repeat games or teams. I try not to repeat teams. You know what I mean? So it's tough because there's a lot of really good games, especially with games in the West, especially with games in the Central. All the divisions now are coming up with some really great games. It's all must see.
All the races are so tight. Every game means so much.
And now they're starting to get into those little mini playoff series where they're playing one night, having a night off, playing the next night. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I like too. So
My number 5 is one of the teams that you picked. It's the Pittsburgh versus the Boston.
Yep.
This little series right here, on the 1st and the 3rd of April. Pittsburgh is banged up. They need this. Boston, coming off their COVID, they need this too. This is jockeying for position. I think these are some. Anytime Pittsburgh and Boston play this year, it's been must-watch TV.
Yep.
These games have been tight, grueling, hard checking, physical. They're good games to watch. Definitely check that out.
Absolutely.
Number 4 game for me is the Carolina Hurricanes versus Chicago, playing on the 30th.
Yep.
This is must win for Chicago.
Yep.
If they want to keep holding on. They've been playing well, but as of late, not so much. And Carolina is just you need to be beating the Carolinas of today in order for you to get to where you need to be, and that's what Chicago needs to do here in this game, is beat the Carolinas so they can get to where they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
My next one, number 3 game of the week, is the New York Rangers versus the Washington Capitals. This is happening on the 28th of March. Are we going to see what's really going on here with the New York Rangers? Are they for real?
A great test.
Yes, exactly. That's why I picked this game, because of what the New York Rangers have been able to do since Panarin has come back.
Yep.
I think Washington has been playing very well this year.
Yep.
They're one of the hottest teams in the league. They're one of the best teams in the league, and I want to see what this is going to match up like. Okay.
Yep.
That's why I think this is a good matchup game here. My next one is the Edmonton Oilers versus the Toronto. This was the same series that you picked. They play on the 27th, and then they play again on the 29th. Toronto came out blowing it up, and Edmonton has caught them up.
Yep.
You know, when you got guys like Connor McDavid playing on your team and putting that amount of points up, you better be a good team and you better be winning. And boy, howdy, isn't Edmonton catching them up?
They're doing
right
it
there. Exactly. My final game of the week is going to be the Vegas Golden Knights versus the Colorado Avalanche. You know, ever since Vegas has come into the league, this matchup here, this Vegas Golden Knights versus Colorado, have been awesome games.
Yep.
Ever since they started playing in the league together, or ever since Vegas has come in, every time they play Colorado, it's a good game.
It's a great matchup. Yep.
That's what I mean.
Yep.
And Colorado is now healthy, and they're firing it on all cylinders. And I think this is going to be a really good game to check out. Vegas Golden Knights versus the Colorado Avalanche on the 27th. That's my 5 games of the week.
Absolutely. So obviously there is some great hockey to watch coming up here.
Woo!
Not only this weekend, but all week long and into next weekend as well. So we've got some great hockey as always in the NHL. That brings us now to our final segment, and this is a fun one because we get to kind of look ahead to the future of the NHL. It's time for Prospect Watch, where we highlight a prospect that is currently not playing in the NHL, you know, whether it's in the AHL, junior, college, wherever, but either, you know, expected to be in the near future. So, Steele, if you want to go first.
Got it. This is one of my favorite segments, man.
Yep.
I love this because I love talking about the up-and-coming stars, the up-and-coming kids that are either set to be drafted or already drafted and lighting it up in the minors or lighting it up in college or doing what they're doing, you know what I mean? So I love this section. My player for this week is a player out of New York. Yep. He's a U.S.-born player. He's a right-handed center. He's 20 years old. He's 6'2", 194 pounds. Yeah. How about that? Shane Pinto.
Size. Oh, yeah.
Good size, good speed, good
North
length.
Dakota.
Yes. He's going to University of Dakota, and that is a school known for hockey.
Oh, yeah. North Dakota is as good of a hockey school as there is in the United States.
Oh, it gets better. Hold on, I ain't even done yet. he was picked by the Ottawa Senators in the 2nd round, 32nd overall, right? So he was like first one in the second round.
Yep.
Yeah, in the 2019 draft. For the University of Dakota this year alone, 26 games played, 15 goals, 15 assists, for 30 points. He's a plus 16.
Yeah, a great two-way player.
Holy moly!
Yep.
Okay, can I have that player?
Oh, yeah.
He's been lighting it up. He's been playing really well. He's doing all the right things. we're going to see this kid sooner rather than later, I think.
And he's
He's
an
got-
Ottawa Senator pick who already
what I
have
mean.
so much young talent there. I mean, you're just adding to it here.
And this kid is probably going to be opening some eyes, at least I think next year.
Mm-hmm.
So Shane Pinto, a center, the Ottawa Senators, second-round pick, 32nd overall in the 2019 draft. That is my prospect watch for this week.
Yes, mine is a name that most of you will probably remember if you paid attention in the draft this past year. Ozzy Weisblatt, 19-year-old right wing who was drafted 31st overall. The last pick of the first round in this year's 2020.
Wait a minute. Wait. Hold on. Oh, this year's draft. Okay, I'm
2020, yeah. This past draft in October, he was the last pick of the first round. Went to the San Jose Sharks, and he plays in the WHL. Obviously, they've just got their season going and started up again, so hasn't played a ton of games yet, but in 7 games played, he already has 2 goals, 7 assists for 9 points and is a +2. He also has 19 penalty minutes on the season, so he's bringing some physicality as well. And he did play 1 AHL game, I believe. Or, no, he played more than 1 game, but he had 1 goal in the AHL before going back to junior, because once the junior season started, they all had to go back if they were junior players. So he's gone back to the WHL now, but he did play a little bit in the AHL and did score a goal. But again, first round pick, 19-year-old right wing. Obviously a lot of offensive upside here. You don't get picked in the first round if you don't have that. And again, San Jose's a team that needs some young talent in that lineup because they're missing a lot of depth right now, and they're missing a lot of that. And Weisblatt is a guy that hopefully will be in the Sharks lineup sooner rather than later. It's not obviously going to be this year, but maybe next year or at least the year after, he should be getting a look in the NHL. So he is my prospect watch for this week. Right wing, Ozzy Weisblatt, 31st overall pick in 2020 by the San Jose Sharks.
There you go, my man. I'll tell you what, those are 2 really awesome players there, and you can't go every week. We always have good prospects to talk about. It just seems like we do, you know what I mean? So it's like we know what we're talking about. Gosh, we can't have that, can we? No. But, wow, John, listen, hey, I want to say something to you, man. First of all, thank you very much for being part of the Steel Flyers All Sports Network. Thank you very much for helping to make this show as awesome as it is, for helping to do this show, for being part of this. Really want to thank you very much for all that you do, and how dedicated you are. And, man, I'll tell you what, every time we do a show, brother, it just gets better and better.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thank you for having me a part of the group here and having this show. And obviously it wouldn't happen without Steel Flyers. So that's going to bring us to the end of episode 13. Which
wow.
The numbers gets higher. Well, yeah, it gets higher and higher, but it seems crazy how high it's getting. We've done 13 of these shows now, and it's been a blast every time.
Yes,
so
I agree.
Steel, thank you so much for coming on and co-hosting again. And thank you to everybody for watching. Thank you to our sponsor, Canine Country Club Resorts. We want to give them a huge shout out for all of their support for not just this show, but everything at Steel Flyers that they help out with and support.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is going to do it for this episode of the Off the Wall Hockey Show. It's a hockey show for hockey fans. And we hope that you guys enjoyed it. I know this is fun to do every week for sure. So thank you to everybody watching. Thank you to everyone who listens afterwards as well. And we'll be back next week with episode 14 per usual. And we'll have a whole new week of NHL hockey action to talk about. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you all so much. And I'll be talking to you very, very soon.